The impossible candidate. The Galactic Evaluation Council's Grand Chamber fell silent as Maya Chen stepped through the quantum portal. A sea of alien eyes, some compound, some singular, some not eyes at all but sensory organs beyond human comprehension, focused on the small bipedal figure entering their sacred testing grounds. The massive amphitheater, carved from a single asteroid and orbiting a dying star, had witnessed the evaluation of thousands of species over millennia. None had ever passed the final test. High Evaluator Zixthul, a crystalline entity whose form rippled with cognitive light patterns, leaned forward on its hovering platform. This is the human representative. The translator rendered its harmonic vibrations into something Maya could understand, though the disdain required no translation. Yes, High Evaluator, confirmed Ambassador Trell, the spindly Arcturian who had fought for humanity's right to attempt the Crucible test. This is Dr. Maya Chen, Earth's candidate. Maya stood straight, her environmental suit gleaming under the chamber's ethereal lighting. At 37, she wasn't what most would expect of Earth's champion. Average height, lithe but not imposingly athletic, with quick, intelligent eyes that darted around the chamber, cataloging every detail. Approach, human, commanded Zixthul. Its crystalline body fragmented and reformed as it spoke, a display of computational power that most species found intimidating. Maya walked forward, her footsteps echoing through the chamber. The gravity was slightly off, calibrated to be uncomfortable for her physiology without being debilitating. A small test before the real challenges began. Your species has been part of the Galactic Compact for barely 3 decades, Zixthul stated. Most civilizations spend centuries preparing candidates before attempting the Crucible. Your ambassador's insistence on your participation is premature. With respect, High Evaluator, Maya replied, her voice clear and unwavering. Humans often accomplish the most when others believe we're not ready. A ripple of what might have been laughter, or its nearest equivalent, passed through the assembled aliens. The Morzet delegation, massive arthropoid beings whose exoskeletons could withstand the vacuum of space, clicked their mandibles in clear amusement. The Trollgath attempted the Crucible after only 50 years of interstellar travel. A voice like grinding stones announced from the Morzet section. None survived even the first phase. Their civilization abandoned space travel afterward, too ashamed to face the stars again. Maya said nothing. She knew the statistics. Of the 4,219 species that had attempted the Crucible in recorded history, only 317 had passed even the first phase. Merely 42 had reached the final test. None had ever completed it. Your file is peculiar, Zixthul continued, streams of data flowing across its crystalline surface. Not a warrior, not even primarily a physicist or engineer, though you possess credentials in multiple scientific disciplines. Your primary expertise lies in cognitive adaptation and extreme environment psychology. Yes, Maya confirmed. I specialize in how minds adapt to impossible situations. An odd choice for a physical endurance test, commented a floating cloud of bioluminescent particles, the representative of the collective consciousness known as the Loom Machine. Ambassador Trell stepped forward. The selection process on Earth was rigorous. Over 10,000 candidates were evaluated. Dr. Chen's unique combination of abilities made her our unanimous choice. What Trell didn't mention was the controversy Maya's selection had caused. Military generals had pushed for Olympic athletes enhanced with the latest biotechnology. Corporate interests had lobbied for their specialized engineers. Political factions had each promoted their preferred candidates. None had expected the selection committee to choose a cognitive adaptation specialist whose most impressive physical achievement was surviving 3 years at a research station in Antarctica during Earth's climate crisis. The testing chamber has been prepared, Zixthul announced. As is customary, you may take a moment to address your ambassador before we begin. Maya turned to Trell, whose large, multifaceted eyes reflected her image back at her. Remember what we discussed, Trell said quietly. The Crucible isn't just a test of survival, it's a test of adaptation. Don't just endure what they throw at you. Understand it. Maya nodded. I'm ready. The first human to attempt the Crucible, Trell mused. Whatever happens, you've already made history. I didn't come here to make history, Maya replied with a small smile. I came to change it. She turned and walked toward the testing chamber entrance, a perfect circle of darkness that seemed to absorb light rather than merely block it. Zixthal's voice followed her. The testing protocol consists of 3 phases: environmental extremes, cognitive dissolution, and finally, for those who somehow survive, the reality fracture. No biological entity has ever maintained coherence during the 3rd phase. First time for everything, Maya said, stepping into the darkness. The chamber sealed behind her with a sound like the universe taking a breath. Inside, Maya found herself in a perfect sphere of reflective material. Her environmental suit's sensors went haywire, unable to identify the composition of the walls. The space seemed simultaneously vast and claustrophobic, another psychological trick. Maya took a deep breath and activated her suit's recording systems. Whatever happened next, Earth would learn from it. A voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere spoke. Environmental extremes commencing in 3, 2, 1. The chamber exploded into activity. The temperature plummeted to near absolute zero in an instant. Maya's suit crystallized, ice forming in intricate patterns across the surface. Before her body could even register the cold, the temperature reversed, shooting up to levels that would vaporize uncovered flesh. The wild swing should have shattered her suit's material from thermal shock alone. Instead, the experimental adaptive polymers in her suit began to respond, not just resisting the temperature changes but learning from them. Earth scientists had created something remarkable, a material that rewrote its molecular structure based on environmental input. What the Galactic Council didn't know was that the same technology had been integrated into Maya herself. Nanite colonies within her bloodstream began adapting her biology in real time, adjusting her body's responses to extremes that would kill an unmodified human instantly. The gravitational field shifted, crushing Maya with forces that should have collapsed her into a puddle of organic matter. Her bones, reinforced with carbon lattices grown through genetic therapy, held. The nanites reconfigured her circulatory system to maintain blood flow under pressures that would normally flatten her vessels. In the observation chamber, the alien delegates watched in growing astonishment as the human not only survived, but began to move deliberately through the testing space. The Morzat representative's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. Impossible, it chittered. The gravitational pressures are at 50 Gs. The temperature variations should have caused catastrophic molecular disruption. Zixthal's crystalline form flickered with intense computational activity. The human's environmental suit is more advanced than their technological level suggests, but the suit alone cannot explain this. Inside the chamber, Maya endured while her mind raced. Each environmental extreme wasn't just a challenge to survive, it was data. Her nanites collected information about each change, learning, adapting. The cold taught them about energy conservation, the heat about thermal regulation, the gravity about structural reinforcement. The chamber introduced radiation next, exotic particles that should have unraveled DNA and disrupted atomic bonds. Maya's nanites absorbed the radiation patterns, incorporated them, used the energy to fuel further adaptations. Phase 1 has lasted 7 minutes, announced a Machine observer, its particle cloud pulsing with agitation. The previous record for a first attempt was 4 minutes, 12 seconds. Increase intensity, ordered Zexthal. Maximum parameters. The chamber responded. The very air became liquid metal, then plasma, then something beyond conventional matter states. Gravity reversed, twisted, formed impossible geometries. Radiation cascaded in waves that should have torn reality itself. At 15 minutes, even the oldest council members stirred in shock. The human was not just surviving. She was adapting. Her movements, initially strained and desperate, had become purposeful, almost graceful. "Enough," Zixthul finally commanded. End Phase 1. The chamber gradually returned to normal conditions. Maya stood in the center, her suit torn and partially melted but still functioning. Her vital signs, displayed on the observer's monitors, showed stress but nothing life-threatening. "The human has completed Phase 1, Zixthul announced formally. The statement was unnecessary. Everyone could see the results, but protocol demanded acknowledgement. Ambassador Trell's spindly limbs trembled with barely contained excitement. No first-time species had ever completed Phase 1 on their initial attempt. Most required dozens of candidates and attempts before even coming close. "Prepare for Phase 2, ordered Zixthul. Inside the chamber, Maya took stock of her condition. The nanites had kept her alive, but they had consumed much of their resources. Her body ached in ways she'd never experienced before. But her mind remained sharp, analytical. Phase 1 had been exactly what she expected, a test of physical endurance through environmental extremes. Brutal but straightforward. Phase 2 would be different. Cognitive dissolution. The real reason she had been selected. The chamber walls shifted, becoming translucent, then transparent. Maya found herself apparently floating in open space, Earth visible below her, beautiful and vulnerable. "Cognitive dissolution commencing," announced the chamber's voice, and reality began to unravel. Maya's perception fractured as the chamber's advanced technology interfaced directly with her neural patterns. Images from her past swirled around her. The death of her parents in the Bangladesh floods, her struggles through university, the isolation of Antarctica, the pain of her failed marriage. But where other species experienced this as an attack, their minds unable to maintain coherence when faced with their deepest traumas and fears, Maya recognized the patterns. This was her field of expertise: how minds break, and more importantly, how they adapt and rebuild. As the cognitive dissolution intensified, Maya did something unexpected. She surrendered to it, redefining possibility. In the observation chamber, alarm rippled through the assembled aliens. The monitoring equipment showed something unprecedented. The humans' neural patterns were not disintegrating under cognitive dissolution. Instead, they were reorganizing. "What is happening?" demanded the Morzat representative, its exoskeleton flushing with chemical signals of distress. Zixthul's crystalline form vibrated with intense calculation. "The human is accepting the dissolution, incorporating it. Impossible," whispered a Lu machine observer. "No consciousness can maintain coherence during targeted neural deconstruction." Yet Maya was doing exactly that. Her specialized training in cognitive adaptation was proving invaluable. Where other species fought against the dissolution of self, a battle they invariably lost, Maya understood that the mind was not a fixed structure but a process, constantly in flux. Inside the chamber, Maya experienced her consciousness expanding, fragmenting, and rebuilding simultaneously. The chamber's technology was designed to identify and attack the foundations of sentient thought, to create a cascade of cognitive failures that would ultimately render the subject non-functional. But Maya's mind moved with the attacks, yielding where resistance would fail, adapting where confrontation would destroy. The psychological warfare techniques she had studied, the meditation practices she had mastered, the neural plasticity she had cultivated, all served her now. As cognitive dissolution reached maximum intensity, something unexpected happened. Maya began to influence the process itself. Her consciousness, rather than being overwhelmed, started to shape the patterns of dissolution. In the observation chamber, the monitoring equipment began to malfunction. Display screens flickered with contradictory information. Some showed Maya's mind completely fragmented. Others showed patterns of thought more complex and integrated than before the test began. "Stop the test," urged Ambassador Trell, antennae quivering with concern. "Something unprecedented is happening." "The protocols are clear," Zixthul replied firmly. "The test continues until completion, or until the candidate's biological functions cease." 23 minutes into Phase 2, well beyond the survival record, the chamber systems began to stabilize. The screens cleared to show Maya standing calmly at the center, eyes closed, breathing regular. Phase 2 complete, announced the chamber's voice, a note of what might have been surprise in its synthetic tones. A shocked silence fell over the observation chamber. In the entire history of the Crucible, only 42 candidates had ever reached this point. All had been from species with thousands of years of interstellar development. None had been first-time candidates. "Prepare for Phase 3, Zixthul commanded after a moment. Its crystalline form had stilled completely, a sign of intense focus among its kind. Ambassador Trell stepped forward. "High Evaluator, I request communication with our candidate before the final phase." "Denied," Zixthul responded. "No interference is permitted once testing has begun. But no species has ever." "Precisely," interrupted Zixthul. "And that fact will not change today." Inside the chamber, Maya opened her eyes as the announcement came. Reality fracture commencing in 3, 2, 1. The universe broke. There was no other way to describe what happened next. The fundamental laws of physics, the constants of reality that defined existence itself, began to shift and warp. Cause no longer preceded effect. Distance became meaningless. Time flowed in multiple directions simultaneously. In the observation chamber, the alien delegates watched in fascinated horror. This was the ultimate test, exposing a biological consciousness to conditions where reality itself could not be trusted, where the mind had no stable reference points to cling to. The 42 candidates who had reached this point in the past had all failed in the same way. Their minds, unable to process a reality that defied comprehension, had shut down. Some had entered catatonic states. Others had experienced complete neural collapse. A few had simply ceased to exist, their very atoms seeming to lose coherence when their consciousness could no longer maintain a unified concept of self. Maya experienced the reality fracture as a storm of impossibilities. Her body existed in multiple states simultaneously. Her thoughts completed before they began. Sensory input became meaningless as colors had sound, gravity tasted of memories, and time folded in upon itself. But where other species had desperately clung to their understanding of reality, fighting against the fracture until their minds broke, Maya took a different approach. Her years studying cognitive adaptation had taught her that reality was, at its core, a construct of the mind. She let go, not in surrender, but in transcendence. If reality would not conform to her understanding, she would expand her understanding to encompass this new reality. The nanites in her system, having learned from the environmental extremes, began to adapt her neural pathways, creating new connections that could process paradoxical information. Her consciousness, reshaped by the cognitive dissolution, now had the flexibility to perceive existence beyond linear time and three-dimensional space. In the observation chamber, the monitoring equipment failed completely. Screens went dark, sensors burned out. The most advanced technology the Galactic Council possessed could not track what was happening inside the human's mind. "This is unprecedented," whispered the Lu Machine Observer, its particle cloud contracting in what might have been fear. For 7 minutes, an eternity in the reality fracture, nothing happened. No readings, no information, just silence and darkness. Then, the chamber door opened. Maya Chen stepped out. Her environmental suit was gone, seemingly dissolved during the test. She wore only the simple undergarment she had worn beneath it. Her skin glowed with a subtle luminescence, and her eyes had changed. They reflected light differently now, as if they perceived spectra beyond normal vision. "Test complete," she said, her voice oddly harmonic, as if multiple versions of herself spoke in perfect unison. Zixthul's crystalline form shattered and reformed 3 times in rapid succession, the equivalent of extreme shock for its species. Impossible, it finally managed. No biological entity can maintain coherence during reality fracture. Maya smiled. Perhaps you've been defining coherence too narrowly. The Galactic Council erupted into chaos. Representatives from 100 species began talking at once, demanding explanations, calling for additional tests, questioning the validity of the results. Ambassador Trell rushed to Maya's side. "Are you?" He hesitated, not quite knowing how to phrase the question. "Are you still you?" "I am," Maya replied. "And more." High Evaluator Zixthal raised a crystalline appendage, silencing the chamber. "The results must be verified. This is unprecedented." "So you've said," Maya responded. "But isn't that the point of the Crucible? To find the unprecedented?" She stepped forward, addressing the Council directly now. "You created this test believing it represented the ultimate challenge, a barrier no species could cross until they had achieved a level of development you deemed worthy. You were wrong." Murmurs of outrage rippled through the assembly. "The test doesn't measure advancement," Maya continued. "It measures adaptation. And humans," she smiled again, "humans adapt. It's what we do. It's all we've ever done." The Loom Machine representative floated forward, its particle cloud reconfiguring in what seemed like curiosity. "You understand what this means for your species. By the ancient laws of the Compact, passing the Crucible grants humanity full membership in the Galactic Council. Access to all shared knowledge. Equal standing with civilizations thousands of years your senior." "I understand," Maya nodded. "And I believe humanity is ready for that responsibility." "How?" demanded the Morzat representative, mandibles clicking rapidly. "How did a species barely out of its planetary cradle achieve what the most advanced civilizations could not?" Maya considered the question carefully before answering. "Most species develop by mastering their environment, bending nature to their will, creating stability, eliminating uncertainty. Humans developed differently. Earth was never stable. Our climate shifted. Predators evolved alongside us. Resources were never guaranteed." She looked around the chamber, meeting the bewildered gazes of creatures whose evolutionary paths had been vastly different from humanity's. "We never mastered our environment," she continued. "Instead, we mastered adaptation itself. Where you see chaos as a threat to be controlled, we see it as a teacher. Where you seek to create perfect systems, we expect imperfection and learn to work with it." Zixthal's form pulsed with data streams as it processed this information. "You're suggesting that humanity's apparent primitiveness, your short history, your technological limitations, these are not weaknesses but strengths." "They're neither," Maya replied. "They're just different paths to the same destination. You've been traveling the stars for millennia, carefully planning each step. We've been scrambling up a cliff face, finding handholds where we can, falling and getting back up again." She gestured toward the testing chamber. "Your Crucible was designed to test the limits of advancement. But advancement isn't only about what you can control, it's also about how you respond to what you can't control." A thoughtful silence fell over the chamber. "The test results stand," Zixthal finally declared. "Humanity has passed the Crucible. As per the ancient laws, Earth is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities therein." Ambassador Trell's antennae quivered with barely contained excitement. This was beyond their wildest expectations. Earth had hoped merely to make a respectable showing, perhaps completing Phase 1, demonstrating humanity's potential. Full Council membership had seemed centuries away. "There is one more matter," Zixthal continued. "The reality fracture changes those who experience it. No species has ever had to address this before, as none have survived. The human, Maya Chen, has been altered." All eyes turned to Maya. The subtle glow of her skin had intensified. The nanites within her had continued their work, restructuring her on a cellular level. "I am still human," she stated firmly. "Change, yes. But human change has always been our constant." 3 days later, Maya Chen returned to Earth, accompanied by Ambassador Trell and a delegation of Council representatives. The quantum portal opened in the middle of the United Nations General Assembly, where world leaders had gathered to hear the results of humanity's first attempt at the Crucible. The Secretary General stepped forward to greet them, then faltered as Maya emerged from the portal. The glow of her skin, the altered quality of her eyes, subtle changes, but unmistakable. "Dr. Chen," he managed after a moment. "On behalf of humanity, welcome home." Maya smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. I bring news from the Galactic Council." The assembly hall fell silent as she related what had happened. The test, the unexpected outcome, humanity's new status in the galactic community. "We stand at a crossroads," she concluded. "The Council has offered us access to technologies and knowledge thousands of years beyond our own development. But they've also warned that such rapid advancement comes with risks." She paused, looking out at the faces of Earth's leaders, hopeful, fearful, calculating, inspired. "I believe we're ready for this challenge," she continued. "Not because we're perfect, not because we're special, but because we've always faced the unknown with the same spirit, curiosity, adaptability, and the stubborn refusal to accept limitations." The Secretary General stepped forward again. "Dr. Chen, you've done humanity an immeasurable service. What happens now?" Maya looked down at her hands, where the subtle glow pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. The nanites had integrated completely with her biology now. She was the first of something new, a bridge between what humanity had been and what it might become. "Now," she said with a smile that contained both wisdom and wonder, "we adapt." Across the vast expanse of the galaxy, in the ancient asteroid chamber of the Galactic Council, High Evaluator Zixthal reviewed the data from the humans' test for the 100th time. Something fundamental had changed, not just for humanity, but for the Council itself. For millennia, they had believed that advancement followed a linear path, that species could be ranked and measured against a single standard of development. The human had proved otherwise. "Computer," Zixthal commanded, "begin preparations for a recalibration of the Crucible test parameters. It appears we have much to learn about the nature of adaptation." As the crystalline being contemplated the implications, a thought emerged that would have been unsettling had Zixthal been capable of such emotion. Perhaps all this time, they had been testing for the wrong things. And perhaps, just perhaps, humanity had something vital to teach a galaxy that had grown too comfortable in its certainties.